people have always been attracted to greatness, whether that's a great view, a great beer, a great company, or a great book. And for me to find that book, 32,000 quarter seconds went into it. And when I did, I was impressed. In that book, over 1,400 companies were looked at, scrutinized, and only 11 were chosen to be considered great. And that book I selected for this project is Good to Great by Jim Collins. So what did it take for these 11 companies to make the cut? What were the requirements? Now, Jim Collins and his team poured over 10 years of research to find companies that went from good to where they performed average to their market. 40 years, and then turned it up and went great for 15 years plus. And what they considered great was 3 times or better than the market average in performance. So yes, we have figured out there's 11 companies. And those 11 companies had 40 years of average performance and then 15 years of better than the market by 3 times. But does that prove anything? How can we figure out what was so good about these companies? By themselves, we can't. So what Jim Collins and his teams did was taking those 11 companies and finding comparison companies who had exactly the same cash flow, moving in exactly the same direction in the same market at the same time. So when things changed, they could compare what did the company that made it to be great do compared to the one who did not. So what are the companies? To get reference for the materials we're going to be talking about, we're going to get the 11 companies that made it and talk about the comparison companies as well. So first, Abbott Laboratories. Comparison company, Upjohn. Circuit City. Comparison company, Silo. Fannie Mae. Comparison company, Great Western Bank. Gillette Company. Comparison company, Warner Lambert. Kimberly-Clark. Comparison company, Scott Paper. Kroger. Comparison company, A&P. Philip Morris. Comparison company, R.J. Reynolds. Pitney Bowes. Comparison company, Addressograph. Walgreens. Comparison company, Eckerd. And finally, Wells Fargo. Comparison company, Bank of America. So in their research, there were discoveries that were made when comparing companies. Those discoveries we'll talk about as 1. The level 5 manager. 2. First who, then what. 3. The Stockdale paradox. 4. Hedgehog concept and the 3 circles. 5. Culture of discipline. 6. Technology accelerators. And then finally, the flywheel and do loop. So what is a level 5 leader? Now, when comparing companies, those who took off, went from good to great, and those who didn't, and either stayed good or failed, there was one word that kept popping up for both, and that one word was luck. The companies who succeeded said they had good luck, and the companies who failed said they had bad luck. Now, luck on its own doesn't mean anything. But when we look at the facts and find out that both companies had the exact same events happen at the exact same time, and actually found that the companies who claimed they had bad luck and failed had better good luck events that happened to them. So, what does it take to make a level 5 leader? 1, it's being humble about it, not looking for the spotlight. With discipline, which we'll talk about. This leads us to a next discovery in the book, called First Who and Then What. Jim Collins coined the term getting the right people on the bus. In 1981, Fannie Mae was losing $1 million every day in business and had over $400 billion in bad mortgage debt when David Maxwell took over, with the company breathing down his neck, asking him, what are you going to do to change this company and turn it around? David Maxwell's response was, you're asking the wrong first question. It's not what are we going to do, it's who are we going to get. So he then proceeded to interview every one of his executives. It's the same thing. This is going to be a tough journey. We need A, effort from everyone moving forward. And 14 of the 26 executives left the company, but were replaced by improvements and better people in the positions. So for him, after that decision and choice, $4 million they made every year. This leads us to our next point. Jim Collins interviewed one of the most decorated naval officers in history. And in a story of a prisoner of war camp, he asked him, who didn't make it? Now, Stockdale's response was, the optimist didn't make it. And then he goes on to describe why. Because optimists would say things like, well, by Thanksgiving we'll be out, and Thanksgiving would come and pass. And then they'd say, well, by Christmas we'll be out. And then Christmas would come and pass. And they'd say, well, by next Thanksgiving we'll be out. And the people, they died of broken hearts. One of the most important things in the Stockdale paradox is what he left Jim Collins. And the quote is, this is very important. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you cannot afford to lose, with a discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they may be. So what does that mean? It means confront the brutal facts. Can I really do this? Can I? But I'll have the hope. Have the hope that in the end you'll prevail. All right, this leads us to one of our last discoveries, called the hedgehog concept in the 3 circles. So there's a hedgehog and a fox, right? And this fox is sleek, it's cunning, it's fast. And this hedgehog is just meandering about. And it's this hybrid, this cross between an armadillo and a porcupine. So it meanders, and it meanders right in the path of the fox. The fox sees this, right? It's just building up speed, getting ready to pounce. The hedgehog turns to see the fox and says to himself, are we gonna do this again? And then proceeds to roll up in a spiky ball to protect. The fox sees this, the spikes, and stops and retreats back to his den to formulate the next plan, the next way that is going to get that porcupine. Now, for the comparison companies, they fit with the fox, picking different strategies, different ways to go about it, but never settling on anything, never being able to simplify it. Now with the hedgehog concept in the 3 circles, the first circle is, am I passionate about this? Do I really enjoy what I'm doing? The second, can I be the best in the world at it? When we talked about the Stockdale paradox, the brutal facts. Can I be the best at it? Yes? Move on to the 3rd circle. Can I make money doing this? The companies that were successful understood this concept and used it. All right, so we've discovered the hedgehog concept in the 3 circles. Now the next one, called the culture of discipline, is able to take the 3 circles to the next level. So, quote, in the book, sustained great results depend upon building a culture full of self-disciplined people who take disciplined action fanatically consistent with the 3 circles. All right, this brings us to the flywheel and the doom loop. All right, I want you to imagine a company trying to break the ground speed record, right? Kennedy Space Station. It's February 13th. Engines are roaring. As the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, pistons ignite. 100 miles an hour, 200 miles an hour, 225 miles an hour. And then they stop. And they see a different road that they think they can go faster on. So again, engine roars, pistons ignite.
100 miles an hour, 200 miles an hour, 225 miles an hour, 240 miles an hour, and then they stop again. And what Jim Collins and his team found that the comparison companies did this. They made a decision and then they stopped. They went back and then forth and then back and forth and back and forth again. And they never settled on a direction. And the companies who were successful, they picked a direction. They fired up the engines. When the pistons came on and ready, 100 miles, 200, 250, 270 miles an hour, and broke the record. For his comparison, he called it the flywheel. Because think of this giant flywheel and you're trying to push it, every ounce of strength trying to get in one turn. It goes around, then again you push it with all your might and 2 turns go around. And then again and 3 turns go around. And then 20, and then 50, and each turn builds momentum off the last. So how did Good to Great relate to our business management book? In chapter 1, we introduced the concepts leader role and entrepreneur role. For level 5 leaders, they needed to 1, be able to take responsibility as an entrepreneur for their position and for their company. And 2, as a leader, need to be able to motivate and inspire their people. Now, in chapter 2, introduced planning and organizing. Chapter 9, introduced organizational structure. Number 10, work teams. Number 11, recruiting and job analysis. All 4 of these chapters related to getting the right people on the bus. Before they could create the idea to be successful, they put the people in place, found out what they could do, how they fit in, and then together created the idea to propel them forward. Now, chapter 3, we talked about competition. And competition would be the comparison companies. Companies at the same time, with the same resources, failing to meet the expectations and failing to be able to keep up with the companies who are successful. Chapter 4, ethical behavior. The level 5 leader needs to have ethics to build trust, to be able to be inspiring and motivating. Chapter 5, purpose statement and goal commitment. We talked about the flywheel. Every push moved it forward. Every push built momentum off of that, which was necessary for the company to grow. Number 6 was competitive inertia. All these companies are hearing all these different changes. The market's really tough right now. And the comparison companies with the fox, they changed over and over again and could never build momentum. The successful companies move forward with a single direction and the single commitment. Chapter 7, organizational innovation. Now, companies are hearing about innovation, changes, technology all the time. And for me, prior to reading this, I thought technology made a significant difference. Well, it does, but not the way you would think. You cannot be successful solely off of innovation, but you can use innovation once you've created a great idea. So now we're left with the question and answers. Now, question 1. Why did I choose the book? I chose it because I was impressed in the research, high ratings, and how much effort was put into it. Now, question 2. Is the person qualified? 10 years of research, being a professor in the field, I think that makes you qualified. Third question. What is the book about? The book is about business. It's about the heart of business, what it takes to be successful in business, to go from good to great. Fourth question. Does the title reveal the author's attitude towards his or her subject? Now, the author says plainly that they did research first before they developed any of the discoveries and concepts in the book.
Come my lady, come my lady, you're my butterfly, sugar, baby. Come my lady, come my lady, you're my butterfly, sugar, baby. Such a sexy, pretty